Air horn. Air horn sound effects. Go here if I remember to put them in. Okay, folks, look. We have a Patreon. And let me be honest with you, we don't run ads on the show. Not real ones, anyway. And not even, like, fake ones for a long time. Remember Toothly? Remember that from, like, 3 years ago? But if you want to financially support the show, go to patreon.com/latenight. Subscribe at any tier for video episodes of pretty much all the shows we do. And if you subscribe at the 2 peach tier or above, that's only $5 a month, you get mini episodes every single Wednesday. Most of them are me and Layden talking, but sometimes we do a crossword puzzle or other weird stuff. So go over to patreon.com/latenight. Thank you guys so much for supporting the show. And hey, enjoy this episode. Or don't. You can't control what other people think.
I was listening to the episode with Andrew Huang, and we don't know each other particularly well. We've interacted a couple times in the past, but he just strikes me as such like a musical alien. Like, there's a couple people I think on the planet who are like musical aliens. Jacob Collier being one of them. Maybe Corey Henry being another one of them, and Andrew Huang is another one of them. Just I really appreciate his like just so unabashedly unique and him like his very himself approach to music and the things he does, and I think that's something we could all strive for, and it's just so cool. Yeah,
I would throw like Thundercat into that mix too.
And
where is
and
that guy coming
Mononeon.
from?
Yeah.
Totally. I love. Andrew. There are so many things I admire about him. Well, actually, the thing I was going to say before is the thing I felt really bad about, and I don't know if you heard this in the episode, is he came to see my band, and this is before I knew him at all, and apparently tried to get backstage, and no one would let him back. Yeah. And then I felt like a total a-hole because of that, especially when it's someone like I know and admire. You know, I feel like I was like, oh, fuck, dude, that sucks.
Yeah, it's a shame that happens sometimes. But the good thing is that makes for a good story later on, right? That makes for good. That's right. It's an entertaining story to tell at this point.
Yeah, and then I kind of owe him one too, right?
Yeah,
'cause it's like, oh, yeah, I should have, dude. I should have known you were there. But yeah, I love the. Well, you know what? Here this is atypical for the show. Although I guess becoming increasingly typical, we're going to introduce the show right away. This is Late Night with Brian Wecht. Layden is out today. She's not feeling too well. My name is Brian Wecht, and we do have a wonderful mystery guest. So, mystery guest, would you please introduce yourself?
Hello, my first name is Mystery. My last name is Guest. Nice to meet all of you. Just kidding. My name is Carlos Eiene, also known on the internet as Insane in the Rain, and it's good to be here.
That's great. So, Carlos, where might people know you from? What do you do?
Yeah, so most of you probably know me from making arrangements of video game music on YouTube. I did that from 2012 to about end of 2021, and now I'm working as a freelance video game music composer. I had my first game with a score just come out, Attorney of the Arcane, available on Steam. It's a visual novel, and I wrote the majority of the music for the game along with another co-composer. But yeah, I've just been super interested in video game music my entire life. I spent a long portion of it dedicated to transcribing and learning video game music and playing it myself, and now I'm doing my best to contribute to the tradition by doing my own stuff.
That's so awesome. Where, you don't need to be too specific, but whereabouts in the world do you live these days?
I'm in Seattle, the Seattle area.
You're in Seattle. Cool. So actually, I want to get something out of the way right away, which is, I love what you do, first of all. And I was reading a little biographical stuff about you. And so for most people listening to this, they probably won't know that this is a thing, but you not only went to Berkeley, you also graduated from Berkeley, which is
those are two very separate, right? Those are two very separate things. Yes.
Yeah. So for people who don't know, and you're the guy who went there, so maybe you should say rather than me. What is the Berkeley School of Music? It's not, by the way, UC Berkeley, which is a different thing.
Yeah, yeah. So there's the Berkeley in California. That one's UC Berkeley, University of California, Berkeley. It has EY at the end. The Berkeley that I went to is the Berklee, Berklee in Boston, Massachusetts, which is the music school. Now, when you think of a music school, you might think of someplace like Juilliard. Juilliard is probably one of the, if not the most leading classical music conservatory in the world. Some people would fight me on that, and I don't really know. Berkeley is still a music school, but I wouldn't really call it a conservatory in that sense. And the beautiful thing about it is that it's just like it's a very contemporary program. Like, you're not studying. Yeah. I mean, yes, there's a little bit of, like the traditional history of European and classical music, but there's also a lot of stuff about things that are modern. And like, of course, there's jazz influence, but even like people go there to become like metalheads. Like, metalheads go there, they study. A lot of famous metal bands came from Berkeley. I had so many friends who were into bluegrass, and like, that's so cool. Like, what other music school do you go to where, three of your friends are in a bluegrass band together and gigging? It's just so cool.
That rules.
But the graduation thing you bring up is funny because it's well known that a lot of people who attend Berkeley for several reasons don't end up graduating. One of the most famous of those probably being John Mayer, and that John Mayer attended Berkeley for like, I think 2 or 3 semesters, something like that, year and a half, and then didn't graduate. But he's still John Mayer, So I think and on one hand, it goes to show that maybe musicians aren't the most, like educationally driven or scholastically driven or something like that. But on the other hand, if you can drop out of school and not pay that much tuition and graduate and do your thing, that justifies it, I think.
Yeah, it's so funny to me that Boston has not one but 2 like arts-driven institutions, and I'm considering Emerson the other one here, where it's yeah, I went there, but I didn't finish that. The list of people who didn't graduate from Emerson is maybe not quite as long as Berkeley's, but still pretty fucking long.
I feel like that sort of attitude is like so the quintessential, like, not just musician, but like artist. Like, yeah, I started that, but I never finished that.
Right. Yeah.
And it's so funny because I actually feel that for me personally, I don't really fall into that camp. That I actually tend to. Maybe it's because of this type of person I am, but like, I tend to not start that many things, and I try to actually finish the things that I start. Like, a lot of folks I've met will talk about having like a folder of unfinished ideas or a folder of unfinished projects like on their computer, and I don't really have one of those. I mean, the closest thing might be like voice memos I've made that haven't made it in, but very rarely does that actually exist. So I don't know if
that's pretty impressive.
Feel different.
Well, especially considering the scope of a lot of what you do. Like, finish. It's not like for the stuff you're doing. It's like, they're not simple, low. They're time intensive, complicated things for a lot of it, right?
Yeah.
So that's a pretty high bar to clear. You're not just writing a 6-line poem, which that can be hard for sure. Yeah. But it's not the same as arranging something for a 20-piece ensemble and then getting it recorded and out there and everything like that. That's a big deal.
I think that's a really interesting point, and I think that's true. And I think it actually works in the opposite way that you might think, because I think it's way easier to start and not finish something small than it is to start and not finish. I mean, at least for my brain, then start and finish. Okay, maybe my brain and something music related. Easier to start and not finish something small if it's like low stakes. But for me, when I think of doing like you said, like a big 20-piece band arrangement, I'm like, okay, this is serious. This is a challenge. Like, I'm going to have to dedicate myself to being able to do this thing, which means I really want to see it get done. And odds are it gets done. And I'm proud of myself for that. Although I know it's not necessarily the main story for everybody. Well, thank you.
No, I think most people really do struggle with finishing. Like, and even if it's like, it's not the getting it to 90%. It's that last, 10 or whatever percent of, getting it mastered and doing the tweaks and then getting it out the door. That's the real struggle for most people, including myself.
Yeah, I think and okay, I still struggle with that part specific, like that final part of like, mix 27
Yes.
of the song. but I think like just the way I've worked, and I think the way that honestly YouTube trained me, and there are so many fascinating things about like my start as a content creator that I think have been really beneficial. Like one of my friends, actually, I'm not sure if you know him. His name is Family Jules Conroy.
Oh, sure. He's been on the show. Yeah.
Oh, really? Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So
he rolls.
So he was a really big, like a really good friend of mine, a really big influence on me, like back when I was starting YouTube stuff. And
that's awesome. I didn't know you guys knew each other. That's well, sorry,
yeah,
I did know. I knew he was in one of your videos. I did, at least. I didn't know you guys were like buds. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, we go pretty far back. And early on, his approach was just make a video every week and put it out. And something
That's
about
awesome.
that like really, really stuck with me. And for about, I think, 5 or 6 years on my YouTube channel, that's exactly what I did. I mean, like the occasional week I would take off, but I would pretty much just do weekly video game music arrangements. And
so great.
Constantly working on that deadline did a lot of things. One, I think it was good for my channel in terms of creating like a lot of like content that people could check out. Sure, that's one benefit of it. But I think more importantly was just the ability to finish things and put them out, even if they're not that great. Like, of course, I look back on the first 2 years of the things that I've done and say like, that wasn't that great. But all of it was a stepping stone to get here and to develop that skill. And I'm not perfect. I don't mean to say I'm perfect, but I do think it is something that can be improved upon if you put yourself in a situation where you have to.
Yeah. But I think that's also partly the nature of recorded music, right? Is you record the thing, and then the more you do it, you've gotten better at it. So almost by definition, the version you recorded is not going to be quite as good if you keep performing it as the version that you're eventually able to do. So part of recording music to me has always been, it is an artifact of what and who you were when you recorded it, and might not be the quote unquote best version of the piece. It's just what it was at that time.
Of course. And then there's the question, well, is there a best version of the piece? I think maybe there isn't. Maybe there isn't a best version
I don't
of the
think
piece.
there is.
Yeah. And that's a whole other philosophical level of discussion, which we can get into, but I know where this rabbit hole goes.
Yeah. I do want to talk more about, so Boston is so interesting to me, and I want to talk about your experience with it, because I lived in Boston for a while before I, left academics to be a full-time musician. I was a physicist, and I was a postdoc. Yes, I was a theoretical physicist. I did postdocs at MIT and Harvard. And while I was in Boston as a postdoc, I was the musical director for the Improv Asylum, the little comedy club in the North End. So I was doing...
Awesome.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. It was just one musician at a time, just me behind the keys. And it was a mixture of written songs, like review style, and then just improvising to either underscore scenes or, improvise songs with the actors. And so I love talking to people about Boston, and especially I never really got into like the jazz scene in Boston specifically. I was... just for some additional context, I went to Williams College for my undergraduate in Western Mass. And so we saw a lot of runoff like instructors from Boston and like the Northampton kind of Amherst area, people who were, adjuncting at like a bunch of different institutions and that sort of thing. So I kind of knew a little bit about like jazz in Boston, but never did anything remotely professional with it. It was like people would just show up at Williams to do shows and stuff. So I'm curious, when you were at Berkeley, did you like get out into the city at all to do stuff, or was it very much just at the school?
So I think my case was an interesting case because while I was friends with a lot of people who were in like that Boston jazz gigging scene who were doing their thing to get into the city. Yeah. I was there on YouTube instead. Like I was doing my thing. I was doing my thing online, and I didn't participate in the live stuff nearly like nearly as much just being on the scene. I remember that when I was at school, there was this one really famous spot where people would go to for jam sessions called Wally's, and I think Wally's was on. I think it's on Mass Ave and maybe like 15
I've
15 or
never
20
even
minutes
heard
south.
of it. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That's the magic of these jam session spots, is that they're kind of like, you kind of have to know. Right. You have to know somebody to figure out where it is.
The one I knew was it might have changed the name, but it used to be Lily Pad in Cambridge.
That's in Cambridge. Yeah.
Yeah, it's in the square.
Yeah. That was another spot I heard of. I didn't hear as many jams about people going to that one for as many jams, but definitely at Wally's. And so at the time in college, like I was like, I studied saxophone in college, and that wasn't like my major. I had, so at Berkeley, my major was what's called contemporary writing and production, which is a hybrid like music production and like composition arranging degree. And that's how specific it gets at Berkeley. But at the same time, I was taking lessons on saxophone because I did want to get better at saxophone. But I didn't really feel like I super belonged in, like the in-person, go to clubs, call tunes, show up, that kind of jam session scene. And that is such a unique culture that I think is it's kind of it can get kind of cutthroat at times.
Oh yeah.
But it's still fun. It's still fun to participate in if you're with the right people. So I didn't really find myself going to Wally's. I maybe like walked in once to see what it was all about, but I don't think I ever played there. But I had plenty of friends who did, and they loved it. So I'm sure it was a fun time.
It's so funny. So I did almost exactly what you did, albeit not in a music school specifically. So I was a jazz composition major at Williams, and saxophone was my main instrument.
Oh wow!
And I took sax lessons and realized pretty quick, like, I'm not going to be a pro sax player because like the amount of just practicing that I would need to do in order to live that life. My sax teacher was this really awesome player named Bruce Williamson, really, really talented, fun guy. One of these lifer dudes. I don't even know, I haven't been in touch with this guy for a very long time, but was just, gigging all the time in New York and Boston, teaching at 5 different schools, blah, blah, blah. And seeing the life he had to live to just be a pro sax player, I was like, A, that sounds hard, and B, I'm definitely not good enough right now, and probably never. So that, like, just show up, get the gigs and do the club thing always seemed terrifying to me.
Yeah, it is. It's a lifestyle that is very demanding, but I think that for anybody, if you really believe in something and you really feel like this is the thing I was destined to do, and if your destiny that you feel in your heart is like, I'm going to be a, professional gigging saxophone player and earn my living just by playing and playing adjacent things, you'll find a way to make it work. That's the beautiful thing. And I think that's what gives, like, that gave Bruce the energy to be able to do that, right? Because when you and I think about it, it's like that sounds like a lot of work. I'm tired just thinking about it. But if your heart's in it and it's something you want to do, it works out super well, or it can.
100%. And he, genuinely talented and very kind of like zen and like classic like chill kind of dude.
Man.
But yeah, I didn't realize that. What you and I did was so parallel, although you definitely were doing it at a much higher level than I was. Williams was like full liberal arts. Music was like a major, and I did a lot of music stuff, but it was not, I'm sure, with the rigor that a Berkeley education had.
See, that's an interesting point, because you would think that a Berkeley education would be very rigorous, and I think it is. It can be, or it doesn't. It might, like, if you go at like the default pace and just like, you can skate by, and I think it's very possible to just do the minimum necessary to get through everything. And I think that it's not like that. The coursework in the classes is not where the challenge lies, in my opinion. The challenge lies in doing everything that the school has to offer outside of the
Right.
classes and fitting that together.
1
And
million
that
percent.
was the best thing about Berkeley. So in one of my
Same.
semesters, I would take like my major classes, maybe like some art appreciation class that I had to take to get out of the way. Although those classes were still pretty good. And then at the same those classes, I was also studying Japanese when I was at Berkeley. I took 4 semesters of Japanese
Cool.
at Berkeley.
That's awesome.
And then also doing my YouTube stuff. And on top of that, there would also be I'd have friends who would say, "Hey, Carlos, can you play in my recital?" One of my friends was putting together a recital of her traditional Peruvian music. And so
Cool.
I would have to go to like these 2-hour rehearsals a couple times before this recital, and it would this traditional Peruvian music. I think one of the styles is called lando, which I wasn't familiar with before, and it is
neither
the
am I.
most complicated 12/8, the 12/8. Nobody knows where beat 1 kind of thing is, and it was so cool to just be in that environment. But doing that on top of everything else and managing time, that was the real challenge. Now, somebody could just be doing the coursework and not do the, all the other stuff. And I think everybody's different, right? But
Yeah.
I think that seems more manageable to me than doing all of these things on top of each other.
100%.
So the experience is really what you make of it, and I think that applies
Yeah.
to every school.
I had the same thing at Williams. For me, it was Williams is a pretty rigorous school, but
Yeah.
I was in rehearsal every night of the week. I got to, for 2 years, I was the director of the student symphony. So I got to, rehearse and conduct this 60-piece orchestra, and then doing pit bands and all the jazz
Wow, that's
ensembles, and
fun.
then jazz gigs would come through. Dude, I was like, how many places would I be able to be in charge of a symphony for a couple of years? So I picked all the repertoire, and we there was the pro symphony where it had pro musicians from all over, mostly Massachusetts, but whatever. And, students who auditioned to get in. With the student symphony, our standards were, not quite as high as the Berkshire Symphony was called, but still, reasonably high. And we could do big, fun, classic pieces. We had students write stuff. It was awesome. And I've always thought of it at the time, I think I remember thinking, this is pretty special. Now looking back on it, 25, however many years later, I'm like, Jesus Christ, who gets to do that? I'm so glad I took the chance to do it then and really make the most of it. Because that was never something that, I certainly haven't done that since. And will that ever happen? Probably not, But
most people
couldn't
don't
agree
just
more.
stumble into symphony organization or conducting opportunities, but that's so cool that you got to do that. It's cool that
It was awesome.
It's man, I think if you've never, to anybody listening, if you've never ever played in a musical ensemble, making music, especially a big one, it's one thing to have a small group band where you're like a rock band if there's 4 of you there or something, but playing as part of let's call it a 50-piece orchestra, playing a role in that it's such a unique, special feeling. I honestly, I haven't had that in a while, and I miss that a bit. But I think having that experience of playing an ensemble isn't just about learning how to play your instrument on an ensemble. It teaches you about yourself as a person in a way, and it teaches you about the importance of sometimes it's not all about you, and the best thing you can everybody needs to hear this. Sometimes it's not all about you. That's the truth.
Indeed.
And sometimes the best thing you can do is just play some offbeats in the background, and you're still contributing to an amazing picture that and the overall thing is great. And I think that's such a beautiful lesson, and nothing more poetically teaches that, I think, than being a French horn player in a symphony.
Well, so I was the tuba player in the symphony.
Oh.
So in a pretty similar role where it's when the parts are good, they're really good. But a lot of the time, you're bomb, bomb, bomb. It's there's French horn. I feel like French horn, at least, yes, you're waiting for a long period. But when you're in it, you're really in it.
Oh, yeah. Wow. So wait. So hold on. So you said you studied saxophone, right? Then how did you get to tuba?
So the route was actually I started sax when I was, I don't know, 10 or so. And then when I was in fifth or sixth grade, they needed a bari player in my elementary school, so they gave me a bari. School just had a bari, and then. And they had no tuba players. So I started playing tuba parts on the bari because sometimes that was what was needed in the concert band. And then at some point I was like, well, if I'm playing all these tuba parts, I should just learn the tuba. So I learned the tuba. Now I haven't picked up a tuba in a very long time because it turns out they're expensive.
I have one right here if you want it. It's just off camera in the corner over there.
But I loved playing tuba. It was so much fun. And so when I got to Williams, there aren't that many tuba players, especially in a small school. So we did I played in the student symphony as a tuba player, and whenever occasionally in the big band we do some like Fletcher Henderson or whatever 20s type shit where the tuba was holding down the bass. There, and then Oktoberfest, where I remember being my big tuba season. Even in Western Mass, like. And once October rolled around, you could get some good oompa gigs.
Oh wow! I'm so. Did you play? Were you playing like sousaphone? Did you ever do sousaphone too?
Oh yep. So I was in the marching band, and we had the big like the not the brass one, whatever the
the fiber is it fiberglass? Is
the
that what's
fiberglass? I think so. Yeah.
It's either fiberglass or polycarbonate, something like that.
Yeah, but the big white one. Like,
yes,
with,
I don't know what that's called.
Parts of it are brass, but not the whole thing.
Yeah, not
because
the
they weigh like 30 pounds less than the the actual thing. But yeah, so I did sousaphone for a while in the marching band too.
It's so funny because I started on alto. My short stories clarinet. Before that, piano was my first thing. Then,
same.
And this is all elementary school. Piano, then clarinet, then alto sax. And then my director also gave me the bari part. And I was also playing. Awesome. I was also like in my sixth grade band, I remember being the lowest. I was the lowest voice in the ensemble because we didn't have a tuba player in my period. Oh, this is so cool. This is so funny.
So I'm curious if you had to do this. I had for the first 4 years of me playing the bari, I carried around or had in the band room a cardboard box filled with cardboard that I could put the sax on top of because I was too short to play it. So I would play it, straight between the legs in front of me style, not to the side. And this little kid would just put this thing straight in front of me, but had to elevate it on this box. And this box started getting real ratty after a few years of that.
This makes so much sense now because I was to call back to that Andrew Huang podcast I was listening to, mentioned something about a contrabass saxophone, and I was like, who talks about it? Yeah. Who just knows what a contrabass saxophone is? And I'm thinking that maybe for someone somebody with the body of a fifth or sixth grader, a bari is kind of proportionally like a contrabass saxophone. Because I'm thinking about
yes.
Yeah, because you putting it on a box and trying to fit the mouthpiece into your mouth. I don't think I did quite that, but I do remember I think maybe it induced a growth spurt in my hand because I remember I couldn't my right when you play saxophone, for anyone listening, your right pinky finger kind of has to stretch down to this key that's on the bottom, and your pinky fingers do a lot of stretching, and if your hands aren't big, that's an issue. And I remember my fingers could not reach the keys at that age, so oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Wow,
I forget
so
if I said this on the Andrew episode, but I remember the Rod Baltimore, this woodwind store in the city in New York used to have a contrabass, and you could play it if it was in the window. It's this giant fucking thing, and they would let you play it if you wanted to play it. And of course, it's just you can barely put the mouthpiece in your mouth; it's so big, and then your hands are like that. Yeah, it's nuts. Have you played a bass? Ever bass sax?
Oh no, I've never played one. I have all four main ones sitting on my woodwind rack right here. Mm-hmm. But I've never played anything lower than a bari. Except this one time. I don't know if you count this, but except this one time where I had a long thing of vinyl tubing that I bought from Home Depot for a talk box. Yeah, for a talk box, and then I was like, wait, hold on, my mouthpiece fits on this thing. So I think it was actually, I think it was just a clarinet mouthpiece, which is smaller than a baritone saxophone, and I put it on there, and then I made the noise, and I was like, oh wait, this is really low. And then I like found like a funnel in the garage, and I put the funnel on the end of the thing so it looked like a horn, and then I had I had a single one note low woodwind instrument. It was so fun.
I've seen someone do something like that with a Barry, where they stick something in the bell and get an extra half step down, like for like that as well.
Oh man, it's so cool. Hard to justify the investment, because it's like the bass compared to the Barry is like 5 extra notes or something like that. It's 1, 2, 3.
It's not much.
It's 4 extra notes if you're coming from a low A Barry, which is like kind of like not very much bang for your buck if you're talking for like the cheapest ones I've seen are like at least like $5,000.
Oh, I would imagine a decent one is going to be like $20,000 at least, right?
Yeah,
like,
for the decent ones with a name brand that somebody would recognize would be around that cost. But man,
and you don't see them much in ensembles. Yeah, I remember seeing one thing where there was some James Brown band had a guy on bass sax, and I was like, oh, this guy's just hanging out in the back and he's carrying it around his neck, which, like, oh my God, it's just a recipe for back problems.
Yeah, they should call it the sciatica phone.
Yeah, chiropractor's dream. And when did you just pick up all the other instruments like along the way? Because you play a ton of different things, right?
Pretty much. They were mostly born out of necessity. And I think a lot of things in my life have kind of unfolded that way. Basically, when I was making my YouTube videos, my goal was always like, I want to make like the best quality music and make the best things I could possibly make, And I wanted it to sound like the my favorite band is Snarky Puppy, which is just a collection of just...
with Bob Reynolds, who plays with them
quite
a bit.
I love him. Bob. That's so cool.
Yeah, he rules. Yeah.
Wow, super cool. Wow, I haven't got the chance to meet him, but I would love to do that someday.
I think not to interrupt, but We Like It Here is one of my favorite albums of all time, and like I can't watch those videos enough. I showed him my kid. Wow. I have a 9-year-old, and like I'm like, Audrey, you gotta see it, because it's so interesting, and just how they did that whole recording is great. Anyway, sorry, I'm interrupting.
9-year-old reacts to Corey Henry's solo on Lingus. Add another one. Add another one to the reaction video pile.
That specific solo is my favorite thing on that album, by like a long shot. It's so great.
That's so cool. Anyway, I could derail myself right here, but I won't. But so I wanted to make these covers I was making at the time. I wanted to make them sound like the records, and so I would do obviously I would be like studying the compositions, like transcribe the solos that they played on the records, and then learn I guess basically I was like, okay, what instruments are being used in this ensemble? And I was thinking like, okay, they've got two saxes, 2 trumpets, a couple of keyboards, a couple of guitars, bass, drums, percussion, that kind of thing. And then I would like in each video I would make, I would say like, okay, what can I do to make this organ part that I want sound more like this thing, or like more like Corey Henry from this Snarky Puppy record? And I would like learn one thing at a time. Maybe the first thing was like, oh, there's this thing called you can get a virtual instrument. I don't have to use the built-in sounds of my Casio keyboard. What?
Right.
So that's a revelation in and of itself. I remember that.
For sure.
And then just over time, it kind of built, and eventually when it came time for other instruments, I thought, wait, hold on. How hard would it be if I just like got a bass guitar and started learning how to play? Like,
and you're like how old at this point ish?
This is bass specifically. That was in high school. I was probably 15, something like that. Mm-hmm. I think when I first got it. Actually, at when I started my channel when I was 14, something like that. That's
awesome.
And at the time I was mainly saxophone and piano were the 2 main things I was playing. But then over time it would just like accumulate, and I would say, let me get let's try a basic guitar part. Let's try a basic bass part, And it just evolved. I mean, like for the audio listeners of the podcast, they can't see the room I have in here, but it's surrounded. Like I have two
it's
drum
everything,
kits.
basically.
It's everything. I have two drum kits. One is set up as a jazz, like a higher tuned jazz kit, and another was set up like more like a rock fusion kit. Two of these back here, they have a wall of off screen, a wall of guitars. With a Strat, a jazz bass, a classical guitar, a steel string mandolin, and an ESP guitar that I just got. My woodwind section, my brass section, my upright bass, and a whole pegboard wall of. I wish I could zoom out more and show everybody, but it's all come from like just my desire to make music that sounds like the records that I liked, and sometimes. There will be a situation where I definitely, like if I'm working on a game soundtrack, right, and there's a section where I'm really hearing this like shred violin solo. I can't play the violin yet, and even if I were to practice it, it would take so long to get to the point of being able to do like that shred level stuff that it's not worth it. Maybe someday, but not right now. So in those situations, I'll definitely like bring somebody else on to record, but for most, or like the average situation when I'm just trying to play like a part in an ensemble and I want it to sound half decent or sound pretty good, I do my best to actually play it on the actual thing. And because sample libraries and ways of replicating those sounds have come a long way, but depending on the instrument and depending on what type of thing, some of them just aren't there yet. And especially with anything to do with the woodwind is not there yet.
I was just about to say the woodwinds somehow, I mean, they're better than they were. You know, I'm a bit older than you. So, you know, I'm 48 and I remember early fucking virtual woodwinds, which are, you know, not, I mean, they're really, really bad. They're great if you want that specific sound for like a fake saxophone. Yeah. And then they're the greatest thing ever. But you're not going to mistake it for anything resembling a sax. Mm-hmm. And they're still not there. Like even the best ones are, you can still tell.
Yeah. And I really like that distinction you made in that something that's because I use a lot of live instruments, I think it's important to note that I don't think always having a live performance is necessarily like better than having the equivalent of a virtual instrument, because sometimes you want that sound, sometimes you want that very particular sound, but in some cases you don't, and that's right. Where I come in. And actually like a lot of the work that I do on my soundtracks these days, especially the ones where I'm on a team, is I'll be working with like one of the games I'm writing music for is called Breeze in the Clouds, and on that soundtrack we have 4 composers total. And sometimes what'll happen is one of the other composers will finish a track, right? They'll share it with everybody else. We'll listen to it, and then I'll say, okay, I could probably record that. Like I could get that melody that you have, that melody line on a synth saxophone. I could probably do that on saxophone for you. Also, you've got like this background part on let's call it like this background brass section that has that's just like play on a keyboard, but this would sound really good if it was done with like actual like trumpet performances and layered on top of each other. So I love doing that so much. Just like collaborating and recording those parts for people and bringing those to life. I
want to hear about this, like this team writing kind of stuff, because that sounds what a cool thing. I mean, I don't know too much about the how video game music is made. So is this a pretty typical thing these days, is to get a team of multiple people scoring something?
I would say yeah, it depends. It really just depends on the size of the project. Like for Breeze specifically, we have a very large like soundtrack that we're planning. The game is like it's not released yet. We're still working on it. Doesn't have a release date publicly yet. But it's like we're aiming in the realm of like 70 songs or something like that on the soundtrack.
Oh my god!
And for one person to do all of that would take a very long time, and it would be very difficult. And plus, just having different composers lets you hit different stylistic ranges more. Like maybe like in this case, like I tend to do better on. I have more experience at least in styles that use a lot of acoustic recordings. Like I might have a track that has like acoustic piano and like flugelhorn or something like that. Versus another friend will be way better at something that's like New Jack Swing. That's a style that we're using on the soundtrack, which is really cool. But that uses a lot of
great. Yeah.
More like has like that really like that really that kind of snare drum sounds like that.
Yeah, very crunchy. Yeah.
Yeah, but that uses a different sound set that maybe somebody else has more experience with. So I would say that practice is for a game that needs that size, I would say is pretty common. Most of the projects I've worked on have at least two.
So how do you ensure, other than I guess you just ask people to stay in communication and be talented, how do you ensure stylistic consistency so that they all feel like they're a part of the same thing, or that's just part of what the process is?
Yeah, it's part of the process. Now, in game development, there's something that's called the game design document, which is like the Bible for the game, and that's something that is typically made very, very early on, often used in initial proposals to like perhaps a publisher. But it's also really important for establishing the vision of a game, and so many decisions will trickle down from that. And for music, in the case of Breeze and other games I've worked on, we have like music design documents, which will not only like just talk about like, okay, what styles of music do we want in the game? That's an important distinction to make, but also like, how is the music going to be used? Where is it going to be used? What are we going to do in terms of implementation? Implementation is the term that we use for like deciding if a song is going to loop. And if it loops, then maybe is there going to be a part of the song that, if the player's in phase 1 of this boss fight, if they get to the second phase, how is it going to go from phase 1 to phase 2? How will that happen in a musical way that complements the gameplay? How does that happen? So all these decisions are things that we think about beforehand, and really just having that design document and specifically establishing styles, maybe, and including plenty of reference tracks too, that make it very clear what sort of stuff we're going for. That is really helpful in having everybody stay on the same page.
I'm curious too, how much of this did you learn by arranging and transcribing video game music versus school versus just fucking doing it? Because being something you worked on in school too, like I'm just curious what the breakdown was for you. For me, it's always like 10% everything else, 90% just doing it.
It's mostly like that, and I think it's mostly just doing it. Like especially in the case of like the specific technical stuff and how to make the project work the best. Like in terms of, okay, how do we best deliver files to the boring stuff of like, how do we best deliver files to make sure everything is consistent? Like,
file management, baby.
Yeah, like that's a game developer's dream, is like, underscores and file names. I love that. So that's just kind of a thing I've like, I was certainly introduced to that culture, like being in college, and I had some professors who were pretty good about that. But you see the relevance of it being on the job and how it actually helps in making sure that files don't go missing, things like that. I was actually lucky enough at Berkeley. There was a video game music scoring minor when I was there, which is just like,
oh shit,
that is just like it's a super cool program. And in fact, since I graduated, they've expanded that department to now offer a major in games and interactive media scoring, which is an acronym that spells games. So they call it the games major.
That's great. I mean, obviously they should have that major, right? It's such a big thing for music these days. Like that is a very reasonable and timely thing to have, for sure.
Totally. And I'm so happy that it exists, because I mean, it's no secret, like video game music is like my life passion.
Yeah.
I just love it so much, and I just love seeing it be more accessible to people who want to get into making it. And there's lots of ways to get into it, from like the AAA scene, the indie scene. There's opportunities everywhere if you just know where to look and have the drive to stay persistent.
Yeah. I want to ask you, all right, so I can't have a a real musician on without asking the same question. I probably asked Andrew this too,
Okay.
and Jules and everybody else. I'm always curious what people's relationship with theory is. Like, are you a very theory-driven, analytical type of person, or are you more of a like vibe it out, this is just what I'm feeling type person?
So I love music theory. Like I am super deep into it. I had to feel like you as a former theoretical physicist that you would be
as a
into
mathematician.
Music.
Yeah,
you'd be super into music theory. It's cool how that lines up. In fact, Jules and I, myself, and actually a couple other folks, we used to do these panels at PAX and other conventions called Video Game Music Theory, where we would teach basic music theory concepts using video game examples.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, it was a
idea.
really fun time. And now one of the panelists, his name is 8-Bit Music Theory. He's doing that same kind of thing on his own YouTube channel. So
that's great.
Long story short, I love music theory, but I think I'm at a point with it now where because I'm now in a situation more where I'm applying it more than I used to. Like I was certainly learning a lot about it in college. Like it's time to push up the glasses and talk about the Lydian dominant sharp 11 flat 7 scale used on the tritone substitution of the 5/7 chord. But actually, if you use a Lydian dominant sharp 9 chord scale, it has this really interesting tension of the natural 3 on the the major scale of the parent key. Anyway, so like I think having that knowledge and having the ability to use it when needed is great. Like it's like just knowing having a language in the back of your pocket that you can pull out when you need it. But the thing that I feel that I'm getting better at is kind of putting that aside and letting my ears and like just letting, I don't know, my natural interest guide me more, and then using music theory as a tool when necessary to like help me make like an educated guess or something.
This has 100% been my journey as well. It's like I started out very analytic, like, and one thing we should also say to people is a lot, the music theory is music theory. There's a lot of it out there, but I tend to find people either approach it from a more like classical or a more jazz point of view, at least within like Western musical theory kind of thinking. And I'm squarely on the jazz side. Like, I think about lead sheets and chords and the scales you're playing with them, like you were talking about. But from this, so I came from that like jazz composition where we're fucking music theory, hell yeah, bro, kind of stuff. And getting away from that and realizing simple is fine. It's fine to do simple shit, like however you want to describe it. And then trusting my instincts that, okay, I'm pretty good at doing music. Maybe what my ear is hearing is fine and I don't need to worry about the theoretical background. That has been a huge thing for me personally. And I have tried to, I'm not doing this so much anymore, but for many years, I was trying to actively like not think theoretically about what I was doing and instead just do it. And nothing was better for this, by the way, than being in a bar band where I could just be like I had the guitarist in that band. I told this story on a recent episode. Came up to me, we were just chatting, we were buds, we were hanging out, and he's like, dude, you're such a good musician, you just got to feel it more. And I was like, he's so right, I just got to feel it more. Like, I'm too worried about the theory. So I really, what you're saying really resonates with me, because that is very similar to my journey with theory.
I think it's I'd even go so far to say that like it's also like reflected in like a life trajectory kind of thing for me too. And I think that like just how we grow up and develop as people, and I think that like the approach, there's a reason why someone might gravitate towards that more analytical approach to music, right, and might not want to feel things as much. Versus, there's also a reason why somebody might hate music theory and just prefer to feel it out some more, feel it out. And
they're called guitarists. Yeah.
Oh no.
Oh yes, that's right.
You went there, man. I have to say though, nothing impresses me more than a guitarist who's like an incredible sight reader.
Oh,
like
yes.
those people. You people are some of my favorite people out there. It's like
yes. When you get a guitarist who like really knows what they're doing, it is the greatest thing in the world. Because my brain Yeah, I don't play guitar at all, and my brain does not work like with that, with that style of thinking. And watching someone do that feels to me like a magic trick. So one of the guitarists we work with regularly, who goes by Lord Phobos in the band Twerp, is like this, and it's just like that guy's brain is working differently than mine, and he can nail all. He's not only an incredible player, he's just got all the theory stuff down, and it is my favorite thing in the world to talk to him about music.
Hey, but as long as it works, as long as it sounds good, it sounds good. That's the thing about
Sounds
music.
great. Yeah. Yeah. Well, one thing I've also noticed, and I feel like this is a broader societal trend, but I could talk about this all day, is I feel like easy listening is back. Like things are getting fucking smooth again.
Yeah.
Things are getting to use a word I use with some of the musicians I work with. Things are getting adult, and it's like this adult contemporary kind of yacht rock shit, which I am obsessed with. I feel like is having a moment, and I wonder if it's one of the I wonder if that's right. But I also wonder if it's some broad societal trend away from like harder edge stuff to like, okay, maybe we can, the world has some problems. Maybe we should just like chill it out a little bit. Let's pretend it's the 80s again, or something like that.
Yeah.
I'm curious if you've noticed that.
Yeah, I can. I've certainly thought about that kind of thing with like the rise of like ambient music becoming a little bit more mainstream.
Oh yeah,
and
yes.
and also just of course lo-fi, right? Like the existence of lo-fi and the lo-fi girl as like a genre as a whole is just I think very indicative of that. Like I actually my partner and I just did a really long road trip a couple months ago, and we were driving westward across the U.S. and I think we were either in Idaho or Montana or something, driving to Seattle, and she put on this this ambient playlist and I was like, wow, this is so good. Like, wow, this is so ridiculously simple. This is just someone with a guitar in their bedroom and like Valhalla, like Vintage Verb or something like that.
Yes, of course. Gotta love that.
But it's amazing, and it sounds so great. And I think, and I'm thinking about why it feels
by
so
the way,
great.
Does huge numbers on streaming. Huge numbers on streaming. Like ambient is very big.
Right, and that's. It's really good. I guess that listening session contributed to those listens because we were listening to it. Happy to be a supporter of the ambient artists out there. But it's just, it's so cool. And I'm thinking about like, why did I enjoy that? It was like, that road trip you were kind of on a deadline. So we were driving, we were taking it pretty seriously and trying to make it to our destination at a time. And we had to drive through, if you're driving through Montana at the beginning of April. And when we planned this, I was hoping that the winter weather would have stopped. It didn't, so we had to worry. Like I was on my map looking at, okay, this road is icy, this road isn't. Let's stay on this one, but it ended up being fine. But it was just such a nice like release from all of that, and I don't like I know that's like making ambient music is not where my own heart lies. Although I think everybody loves a nice reverb.
Yes.
I can really appreciate it. I can really appreciate that, just being able to release and let that go.
Just to like feel it, to do simple, and some ambient music is not simple like theoretically necessarily, right? It's just there's often just not a lot going on, but sometimes what's happening is sort of a little discordant and and sort of and odd, but just to be able to like sit there and chill and listen to it and worry more about, and I think this is actually how most people consume music. It's like, how does it make me feel? Right. Most people listening to music are probably not listening to music the way you and I do a lot, which is actively like figuring out, okay, what do they do? Okay. Yeah, I think that's this, I certainly, I have to turn that off rather than turn that on. And I think most people just are like, yeah, that feels nice. That feels good. I like that. And that's great. That's what music is for most people.
I think your comment about the ambient thing is really like I was just thinking about it in like a different like sphere, and it's making me think of sort of a trend in video game music, because I keep up with video game music. That's like my bread and butter, and I've noticed that, you know, in the last 15 years, I would say 10 to 15 years, there's a trend in video games to become very like to approach like cinema standards for games to look and sound cinematic, and a lot of big open like, of course, like the, you know, the trend of open world games is, you know, I think indicative of this as well, that big sweeping experiences with all these things. And I love open world games, and I love that feeling of being able to explore, but I do remember when I think The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild is a great example of this. I do remember when that first came out, there were some people saying like, what happened to the Zelda theme? You know, what happened to the Zelda theme on the street in the overworld? This game sucks. And it's just different. It's a different way of approaching it.
Yes.
So
it's very sparse.
Yeah, and that trend, I think, has continued, and it's I mean, I just think it's cool, and I think it's interesting to see how games have progressed in that way, and also in some situations where, like, the sound design and the like sound effects and the I don't know if it's diegetic or non-diegetic, but whatever
I always
the
forget.
Sound that you,
yes, I
sound
also
that
can't
you,
remember that.
Yeah, which one is which? But like the sound that you would hear, I think that's diegetic. The stuff that you would hear, in the actual world of the game.
Yeah,
that stuff is and when that actually like becomes the music and just how that's implemented, I think that's really interesting.
Yeah, I totally agree. Did you play Tunic?
Yes, I did.
That, I think, is a good example of what we're talking about, where I loved that score. You know, very synthy and cool. By the way, I found out there is something bananas going on with the sound in Tunic, which there's like a super, super deep hidden puzzle in the score for Tunic.
Oh gosh,
and
of course there is.
I'm not even going to be, of course there is. I'm not even going to be able to explain it because I don't fully remember it. But like, if you analyze the sound files, there's like, if you know, like do a Fourier analysis or whatever, there's like, there's some shit going on, which is a puzzle in and of itself. And I think leads to a website or something. I can't remember what this deal is. It's not something I got close to seeing in the game, but I liked how they were, you know, they were able to make a great score and have this other level on top of it.
Did you beat Tunic? Like, did you get to an ending?
I did.
Okay.
I did. Yeah.
Wow. How did you beat the boss I had the hardest time with was maybe I shouldn't say that. Oh, is this spoilers?
That's okay.
I don't know.
Tunic spoilers, blah blah blah.
Okay, Tunic spoilers. Okay. The boss that I had the hardest time with, I think it was, I don't know what they're actually, it's like the Rat King in the in like the area with all the poison.
Oh. Yes.
And he's the guy with like he has like the big gun and he like dashes at you.
Yes.
In that fight when you're deep in the core or something like that. I had such a hard, that fight was like, I mean, the bosses are hard in that game, but that boss was like, dude, this is unfair. Like this is not possible.
For whatever reason, randomly, that one wasn't so hard for me. I struggled a lot more with the first big boss, the like Garden Temple guy.
Oh, really?
That I think that was actually the hardest for me. Maybe I wasn't sufficient. I mean, I had the like level, you know, the stats that you were supposed to have, but I was still learning it. But also, I have a very high tolerance for just throwing shit against a wall over and over and over again. So I mean, I'm not saying that the core guy was quick, but I don't remember that, at least for me, standing out as being notably harder than some of the other ones. There was one where it's like you have to rebeat all the different bosses. It's in the cathedral, I think. Yeah, the cathedral. You go down to a pit and you have to fight everybody again.
Yes. Oh, yeah, that
like
gauntlet part. Thing. Yeah.
The gauntlet. That took a long time. That one I remember being like, oh my fucking God, what am I going to do here?
All right. Yeah, you have, I think it's, I'm not sure, I don't know if you have to fight like the main bosses again, but it's like several groups of enemies that you like get to choose in an order in which you fight them.
That's right.
That was hard, but that was fun. I do remember that, like learning that one. And then I think you fight that guardian thing at the end.
You do.
Again,
that's like the
of that. That's how
that's
it works.
one of them. Yeah. That one I remember being hard. I want to move on to segments because we do have two segments on this show. The first segment on this show, this is our pop culture recommendation segment. You get to talk about a book, a movie, a video game, whatever, culture, both high and low, something you've been enjoying recently. The segment's called What's Poppin', and the theme song goes here.
What's poppin'?
What's poppin'? But we added in post. So I don't know if you heard this when you listened to the Andrew Huang episode. Do you remember this segment at all?
I don't think I heard the segments part.
Great. Okay. So then I can ask you my favorite question, which is if you were to have heard the theme song to What's Poppin', what would you have thought of it? And your opinion means a lot to me here. In this hypothetical world where you heard the What's Poppin' theme song, what would your opinion
have been? I can't believe that you used the super hyper mega meta ultra Lydian scale so well. Wow, nicely done.
That's what I do. Thank you. See, I knew you'd get it. Finally, someone picked up on that.
I heard it. I heard that 432nd hertz undertone. Yeah.
Yep. Straight out of Slimsky, baby. Well, let's see. Do you want to go first, or would you like me to go first so you can have a second?
You go first. That would be nice.
Think about it. Great. So then, can you please ask me, Carlos? Can you say, Brian, what's poppin'?
Brian, what's poppin'?
Well, thank you for asking, Carlos. I appreciate that. What's poppin' for me this week? It's a TV show I've just started watching on Hulu. It's called This Fool. Do you know this this show at all?
No, I haven't heard of it.
It's pretty new. I think it came out. First season was last year. Second season, I think, just came out. And it's basically like a bunch of people, mostly Latino, hanging out in working class LA. And it's a sitcom. It's got Chris Estrada, who co-created it, and Frankie Quinones, and Michael Imperioli, weirdly, as like the minister at like a Chris's character, Julio Lopez, works at a thing called Hugs Not Thugs, which is like an outreach thing where, they take people who just got out of prison and, help them reassimilate into life, and they bake cupcakes, and it's really, really great. It's very funny. The acting and writing are all awesome. And I've been just really, really enjoying it. I'm about halfway through the first season, and I think it rules. So that's nice. This week. Yeah, I heard an interview. I can't remember with who. It was someone on NPR I guess when it came out, and I was like, oh, that sounds good, and then never got around to watching it. And then it popped up on my feed. It was like, oh, shit. And I saw someone say, call it like the best show you're not watching or something like that. And I was like, okay, here's the time. And you just got to love a good sitcom when they're, and this one's pretty dialed in, like from the get-go. Like the characters are right there. You know who everybody is. The main dude's kind of a dork, and it's just like he's this off again, on again girlfriend who keeps showing up, and he can't quite figure out his life. He's sort of aimless, but I really love it. So This Fool on Hulu right now. Carlos, what's poppin' for you?
Oh, I'm so glad you asked. Wow, I can't believe it.
Of course, it's kind of my job.
For me, I'll share a video game that's been taking up my time lately. Pikmin 4. Now, Pikmin.
Oh yeah, okay. Tell me about this.
Pikmin is a series of games that first started with the original Pikmin on the GameCube, where you play as Captain Olimar, and you have crash landed on the planet. Basically, I think it's planet Earth, but we know it is PNF 404, and you have 30 days. He has a 30-day supply of oxygen in his spacesuit, a 30-day supply of life support. Otherwise, he will succumb to the poisonous oxygen on planet PNF 404. And to retrieve all the parts that are missing from his ship to get back home, he finds these Pikmin, or these little almost carrot-like creatures that help him fight off enemies and pick up his parts and carry them back to his ship. So I've loved this series since the first one. It's a relatively it's not one of the more popular like Nintendo series, but I love it.
I feel like
so
I
it's
never
really-
heard about it until recently. Like someone was like, "Oh, Pikmin 4," and I was like, "Oh, I didn't even know about this." Yeah.
Yeah, so Pikmin 4 in particular is unique. So Pikmin 1 was GameCube, Pikmin 2 was also GameCube, Pikmin 3 was originally on the Wii U and then re-released for Switch subsequently, and then there was nothing for a long time. And news articles said that Shigeru Miyamoto at one point said like, "Oh, Pikmin 4 we're working on it." And it was like years, many, like at least like 5 years since that original confirmation by Miyamoto. And it didn't happen. And then suddenly, within the last year, there was an announcement, and Pikmin 4 was confirmed to be real. And I was like losing my mind,
People
like
lost
no
their
way,
minds, yeah.
yeah. Oh, like I was one of them. Was like, no way, it's real. I think I was
That's
watching. My partner and I were watching the direct together, and when Pikmin 4 was revealed, like she complained, was like, "Carlos, you like screamed into my ear so loud because you're sitting next to me." So, anyway, Pikmin 4 follows that same kind of like you don't play as Captain Olimar, but it's the same kind of gameplay. And one term that is that kind of describes the gameplay of Pikmin that's used in the game is a Japanese concept called dandori. That's Dandori. And dandori is like the idea of efficiently distributing work. And there's not really like a single word apart from like efficiency in English that really communicates that. But they just in the English version, they just choose to use the word dandori to communicate that concept. And I think like since one, it's just fun to play, but it's also made me like think about my life differently. Like now when I'm cooking, I feel like I'm playing Pikmin at the same time because I'm thinking like, okay, if I set up my dandori so the rice cooker goes off at the exact same time, I finish cooking this beef at the same time, and this podcast finishes and I'm listening to that is good dandori, right? And it's made everything. Even when I'm not playing the game, it's given me like appreciation for all the other things in life. And I'm just that kind of person who really likes planning and timing things and like, you know, it's like a logical, it's like a logic brain's like paradise. You know, it's like, okay, organizing things and having them finish on time. And it's really fun. So I've been enjoying that a lot recently.
That's so great. Okay, this sounds exactly the kind of thing I would enjoy. So I gotta check this. It's on Switch, you say?
Yes, Pikmin 4 is on Switch, and I think, and you don't have to play 1, 2, or 3 to enjoy 4. It has a lot of callbacks, but no context needed.
Great, cool. Okay, great. So now we have our second segment of the show. So this is 3 parts gratitude. So normally Leighton introduces this, so I'm going to try to dial it in with this introduction. I just fucked her up a little bit, but that's fine. We're all good. It's 3 parts gratitude exercise, and why can't I say the word exercise? 3 parts gratitude exercise and 1 part petty grousing. It's called Peaches and Lemons, and the theme song also added in post, but I'm not going to ask you what you think about it. Theme song also goes here.
Peaches and lemons. Peaches and lemons.
Great. That was the theme song for Peaches and Lemons. Now, the way this is going to work is we're each going to do 1 lemon. We'll do our, like, a lemon is something that's kind of a mild bummer. It's not, you know, a life-altering tragedy. It's like, oh well. And peaches are just 3 things you're happy about. Can be small or big. So I'll start with my lemon, and then you can do yours. My lemon is very simple. I smell fucking terrible right now. I have not showered today. You know, it's that kind of smell where you're like, I think I smell bad. And if you think you smell bad, you probably do. And it's just like, I got up, I immediately had to take my daughter to camp right away, didn't have a chance to shower. It's fucking hot here. It's been a sweaty day, and I just have not had a chance to like shower off. And I can feel myself, like I can tactilely feel myself smelling bad right now. And I hate it. I hate that feeling. It's just, it's not good. So that's my lemon is you know what? I should say more than it's not that I smell bad, which may or may not be objectively true. It's that I feel like I do, which is the bummer.
That's even worse.
That's the worst part.
That's
Yeah.
even worse.
So
Well,
that's-
the good thing is that
That's my lemon.
you know how to fix that, and the power is in your hands.
But that's also the scary part. It's like, having that much power over my own destiny. What am I going to do with all this power, Carlos?
Oh my goodness.
So that's my lemon. What about you?
My lemon is so specific. It's
Please.
so specific and small. So I like to carry this Nalgene water bottle with me. This is one of their liter size models. It's a pretty big one.
Uh-huh.
And
Yeah.
I'm actually leaving on a flight for Japan this in 2 days from now, which
Okay,
I'm
wow.
very, very excited for.
Cool.
And my backpack that I have used for so many years is on its last leg. So I decided let's get a new one, and I was researching online to find the best backpack, and then I found one that seemed like it would do the job, and based on the pictures online, it said it would work. I ordered it for pickup. I went to Target today, went and got it, and I put my water bottle in, and it did not fit in the holder.
Oh, that sucks. Holder's too small. Oh no.
In the whole, I'm just too thirsty. I'm too thirsty. I need more water than this bag can afford me. So it would have been nice if it was a little bigger, but unfortunately not. So probably gonna have to go back and return that.
That's a pretty big bottle. Like you'd have to find a special backpack to be able to hold a liter Nalgene, right?
Yeah, I wouldn't say, maybe not like certainly a particular backpack.
That's what I
maybe
mean.
not.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I think there are some. It falls within the range of like normal backpacks. Like particularly there are ones with like a really stretchy mesh holder,
Yes.
which accommodate that size pretty well. And that's what I was looking for. And based on the picture I saw online, I thought it had that kind, but it didn't.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna have to heal that lemon by shopping around a little bit more.
I feel like it's just rude when the cup holder or the bottle holder, whatever, the thing on the side of the backpack is not suitably stretchy. It's like, guys, there's more than one type of bottle. Can we please just give like some of those, you like pull it out and it just stops at some point. You're like, what the fuck is going on here? I just want to put my little bottle in the holder. I feel like it's kind of rude to not make those stretchy.
I'm not sure what the. I mean, I have never designed a backpack in my life. Probably won't have
same.
to. But if I did,
same.
I would I would think about making sure the thing is stretchy enough. But I know backpacks out there exist with that, so it's a solvable problem.
Same. All right, let's move on to peaches. So now we get 3 of these. There are 3 good things, can be small or big in your life. I will go first. All right. I've talked about this ad nauseum on the show recently, but for whatever reason, I'm having a Stephen Sondheim month. And he's one of my all-time favorite composers. And I saw Sweeney Todd, New York, the new production. And just this past weekend, we saw Into the Woods, the new production at the Amundsen here in LA. Not my favorite Sondheim, but it was a great production. But the peach is that last night we went to the Hollywood Bowl for something called Everybody Rise, a Sondheim celebration with 6 Broadway stars, Patti LuPone being the biggest, but also Brian Stokes Mitchell and Sutton Foster and a bunch of others. And it was like one of the greatest concerts I have ever been to.
So great.
Full symphony orchestra, like just sterling performances from everybody. And Sondheim is this very deep catalog, so you could be pulling stuff from all over. They didn't do too many deep cuts, although they did one cut song from Assassins, which is a musical about presidential assassins. And I'd never heard this song before, but it was just such a great show. And, I straight up cried at several points during the show because it was, he died not too long ago and his music really means a lot to me. And just seeing it performed with this great crowd in this classic venue was really something special. So that's my first peach. That's going to be like, oh my God, I can't believe I was at this concert kind of memory forever. And those are pretty rare.
Yeah, those are really rare, and those are such good things to keep in the memory bank.
I honestly, I can't think of another one too recently that I was at like that. I've been to a lot of great shows, but not one of those like, holy shit, like, can you believe you were there? So let's see. Peach number 2 is I am going to go on a little dad-daughter trip with my 9-year-old, and I'm taking her to Las Vegas.
Oh.
So we're going to go do like family-friendly stuff in Vegas, just me and her. Go to, a fun pool and see some fun shows and do that sort of stuff. So I'm very excited about that.
Oh,
are you going
to do a road trip there? Or is that
yeah, we're going to drive. We're going to drive from LA. Either en route or either going there or the way back. We'll stop at the Hoover Dam. There's not a hell of a lot between where we are and Vegas. It's mostly desert.
Yeah.
But I do want to. I haven't been to the Hoover Dam in like a long ass time, 30 years or something. So I want to like see it again and show it to her. And we'll see some good shows and have a good time in Vegas. So that's peach number 2. And peach number 3 is so I have an album coming out in the near-ish future, and I just today got the first physical media for it, which is now like locked in. I can't show it on here. I'll show you the vinyl cover, which is not the vinyl, it's just the sleeve. So I wrote a smooth jazz album. Which is this. So it's this soprano guy. And I just got cassettes for it. So I'm doing cassettes and vinyl. And I just got a box of the cassettes, and they are... I can't even remember the last time I picked up a physical audio cassette. But...
yeah, talk about a resurgence of vintage media. Like, first it was
crazy,
vinyls,
right?
And now cassettes coming back?
Cassettes which don't sound great. Like, they're fine, but it's, people are not doing those for the vinyl. I can understand why people want the audio quality from vinyl. Cassettes are baffling to me, but they are cool. I mean, that's what I grew up with, so I it's nice to see them back, but I took it out of the little cassette box. I was like, when was the last time I held one? I mean, it's probably been 15 years or something. I pried one out of an old car stereo at some point, but yeah. So it's like, it's finally, this album has been a long time coming. It really got sidetracked by the pandemic, and to have it finally wrapped and like getting out there is a good feeling.
Oh, that's so cool.
So
I want to, just based on that cover, I want to hear it.
Oh, thanks. Yeah. I'll send you a copy when
cool.
I have something. Yeah.
Wonderful.
All right, Carlos, what are your peaches?
All right. So I am in general, I think a pretty positive person, and I think there's peaches in pretty much everything.
Peaches
no matter how you look at it. But some of the more obvious ones that comes to mind for me. So my lemon was that my backpack didn't work out. But one of the peaches is
tragedy.
that. Yeah, absolute tragedy. I will be dehydrated the entire time. No, I'll take care of that. But one of the associated peaches was that while the backpack didn't work out, I got a new suitcase that I've needed for so long, and it's just like, it's so simple. It's just a suitcase, but it's great. And I took it out. I went to the store and picked it up, and I was like, this is exactly what I wanted, and it does everything that I need. And it was just so simple, and I like, it made me really appreciate just a transaction of researching something, then picking something up, and having the research pay off, and you make a good decision. It's like, okay, I like this. So
yeah.
I'm pleased with that.
That's great.
I won't sing praises of whatever brand it is, just because I don't think people need to know about that on a show like this. It comes across the wrong way. But my previous I needed to do this because I had like a luggage set from a long time ago, and one of them, it had like a carry-on and like 2 checked size, and of the 2 checked size baggage, both of them have lost at least 1 wheel. So one of the biggest bag has lost 2. As the biggest bag has lost 2 wheels. So, and it's like one of the ones with like the 4 wheels. So, but they're
Yeah,
on
yeah, yeah.
opposite. They're on diagonals from each other. So
Oh.
the bag is like
Oh my God.
officially like no go. Like
Useless,
you cannot
yeah.
useless. And then
Yeah.
one of the other bags has lost one. So it's like, it's time to get a new one. So new
Yeah.
bag is I'm very happy about that.
That's great. Congratulations.
Thank you. I'll be sure to not stuff a living person in it because it's not that big.
Good. Yeah.
Second peach, I would say, is I was at I happened to stumble across an arts fair a couple of days ago with some friends of mine, and we were walking through, and it was not a farmer's market. Nobody was really selling food or anything, but it was like a showcase of just local artists, like a lot of woodworkers, metalworkers, traditional art, some musicians. And one thing I like to do is I like to just buy instruments that are just a little strange.
Yes. Same. And
Yeah.
absolutely same. Yes.
Yeah. Just because like it's one thing to search for a strange sample of something on some sample service, but having an object that is supposed to be an instrument that is unique is just kind of fun. And I was walking around and we found this metal worker who had a triangle that was hanging off of just like a piece of thread from like the top of his little booth, and he actually like, it was just a pretty large size triangle, like, and it was like I don't know metalworking enough to tell if it was
A
raw,
bass
but it
triangle.
was,
Yeah.
yeah, I think it's actually more of a it was more of a baritone size actually. The baritone, not quite that low of a register. I wouldn't support an ensemble with that triangle.
Yeah.
But it wasn't, it's not glossy like an orchestral triangle would be. It was like just a piece of metal, like a bar that someone had shaped into looking like a triangle. But it came with this beater that was also like, it was kind of cool because it had like this, almost like a scepter that like, and the scepter part like hooks. You can store it on the triangle by like hooking it on the bottom, and it was like
Rad.
20. The guy was selling it for $20, and I was like, let me just. This will be cool to have around. And so I was happy to find the triangle, and I picked it up. And then I was showing my friends I was walking with. I was like, so this is how you do a roll on the triangle. And I held it with my hands and I did the thing. And then meanwhile, I forgot that we were in a public place, so people were like looking, and they saw me rolling the triangle.
What's happening?
Yeah. Is it dinner time? So
That's awesome.
that was such a good find. I love finding little things like that.
I remember for years, my mom used to love to go to little arts fairs, and I don't know if this is like a known thing or if it was just some weird idiosyncratic thing. I had something called a strum stick. Is this a thing? Have you ever heard of this? Yeah, I haven't even looked it up. It was a little stringed instrument, like a guitar with two strings. Two strings, frets, all the shit. But it was like maybe a foot long, and I had this in my room forever, and you could play, sorry, 3 strings. It must have 3 strings because you could do little chords on it. Strum stick. And I think it was just something some dude made and was selling them. But, it looked like a kind of like a triangular body guitar.
I see it now. This looks interesting.
Is it a thing? Like, I haven't even looked these up.
It looks like it's just an instrument that is made by like one specific person or manufacturer.
Yes, this is it. Okay, I guess it's a thing. Yeah.
Yeah, wow.
Okay, it's like a known thing. All right. Well, it's not quite as idiosyncratic as I had hoped, but what is a strum stick? A McNally strum stick. It's cool. Okay. Anyway, sorry. Peach number 3.
Yes. So peach number 3, I alluded to this before, but I am finally going back to Japan. I've been to Japan once before in 2018, just as a fun, like as a fun touristy trip, and it's been 5 years since then. So I'm finally having the chance to go back, especially after the country was closed due to COVID. I have quite a few friends over there, and there's several events that are happening in Japan that I'm looking forward to seeing. Last time I just went to I had just went to Tokyo, but this time I'm also going to Osaka and Kyoto for a little bit.
Cool.
So I'm just really excited to leave the country again, and just like, because I'm going for 2.5 weeks. I'm going to be out for quite a while.
That's great.
That'll be super nice. So it'll be interesting because it's like a vacation, but a lot of for some of these events, a lot of my friends are actually also going to be there, so it'll be sort of like a friends trip thing too. So I'm just so happy to be at this point, and also happy that I didn't. Okay, this is like Peach 3.5, but it's related to 3.
Sure, great.
Is that I have this tendency to schedule way too much work right before a trip.
Same,
and
yes.
this, it's hard to do. But this time, there was certainly there was a bump, like there was more work to do. But this time, I didn't let that happen. Like this time, there's just I just have to clean the house and pack and that stuff is gonna happen anyway. But nothing huge and oh god, I have to finish another song before I leave. Like none of that. That did not happen this time. So I feel good that
great.
Did not do that to myself.
Yes, that's awesome. Well, I have a great time. I've only been to Japan once. Did Tokyo and Kyoto, and Tokyo is amazing. It's one of the world's great metropolises. But Kyoto is the one I remember as being a really wonderful, special place.
Yeah.
So have a great time. It's gonna be so fun.
Oh, thank you. I cannot wait to bathe in the nature and the city and the onsen.
Yeah. Oh, I've never done one. I've always wanted to do one of those. I've never done one.
Yeah.
It sounds amazing. Dude, Carlos, thank you for taking all this time to be on the show with me this week. It was really, really fun to talk to you. I didn't realize we had this kind of parallel background. So it was so cool to,
it's really cool.
That.
I didn't know any of that either. I mean, it's so cool to find that out about you, and it's cool how those things develop.
Yeah, totally. If people want to check out your stuff, what and where should they go?
Sure. Well, it's strange because my go-to is Twitter now, but I don't know what's happening with that. So you can go to my website. You can go to my website, insaneintherainmusic.com. That usually has a list of my new releases. You can also follow me on YouTube at Insane in the Rain Music. I'm not posting new videos there very much, but every time I complete a project or have something to share, it will get uploaded to YouTube. So I would say either my website or my YouTube channel. Those are the two places.
That's great. Cool. All right, everybody. Layden, feel better. We'll have I'm sure a mini episode up at some point too. Yeah, get well soon. And now, so normally, okay, here's the dilemma we face. Normally, Layden is the one who signs off on the episode, and has a thing that she says. She has a whole spiel she gets into. So now the dilemma becomes, how do we get out of this episode? How do we finish it off? And I think I'm going to ask you, Carlos, if you have any words of wisdom or any parting thoughts for the listeners. Any advice, even.
So there's a serious piece of advice I could give, and there's also a non-serious piece of advice I could give. Now, I know what the serious piece of advice is, but I don't know what the non-serious piece of advice is quite yet. But okay. I'll give both. The serious piece of advice. Now, I'm not going to remember exactly how it was quoted, but I've been reading this audiobook, or listening to this audiobook called "The Magic of Thinking Big," which is recommended to me by a couple people, and it's essentially just about thinking big and how that creativity and keeping an open mind is like the solution to pretty much everything, which I think is really cool. And I finished the book today, and at the very end of the Audible program, it was like something like I'm going to butcher the exact quote. It sounded so much cooler when the guy said it, but it was something like
it's almost like he had written it ahead of time.
Yeah, it's almost like he had planned it. Something like the fool. The fool is the person who is controlled by their mind, but the master is the one who controls their mind, or something like that.
Cool.
Basically, do it like your mind, your thoughts and your mind are meant to be there. They're meant to help you. They're meant to be an asset for you. And if you get turned around, first off, that's okay. It happens to all of us. But it should be serving you. It should be doing good things for you. So make sure you take some time to check in with yourself and make sure that your mind is doing good things for you. And then that's my serious piece of advice. And then my non-serious piece of advice that I still have not thought of. I would tell you, I am going to, suggest that if you ever buy a tambourine,
Okay, great. I love this.
you should make sure that your tambourine has the best kind of jingles that you want, because a brass jingle tambourine is very different than a non-brass jingle tambourine, and I think that everybody needs to be aware of that in their lives. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I think what you're saying is find your tambourine and cherish it.
Yeah, that's right.
So.
Everybody's got their tambourine.
Everyone's got their tambourine. All right, everybody. Thank you so much. We'll see you next week. Bye.
Goodbye.
Late Night is produced by Brian Wecht, Leighton Gray, and Jarek Centeno. Follow us on Twitter at Leighton Night, on Instagram at Leighton_Night, or email us at leightonnight@gmail.com.